Yo, what's good everyone? Coach D here with the Shift Method Personal Training. Hey, spring is coming up, y'all. It's March, and as you can see, it is beautiful down here in Boca Raton, South Florida. For those who are on spring break, my college students, hope you're having a wonderful time, being safe, having fun. And of course, with spring coming in and eventually summer in a couple of months here, I know a very big thing that y'all are focusing on, or maybe something that's coming back to the forefront of the mind, is weight loss and overall just trying to lower body fat. And so I wanted to make a video here of some of the strategies that I've used with my clients who are focusing on weight loss and what are kind of the main things that have been super successful from a coaching perspective, and of course, if you're just working on your own, to help you lose weight and really have a sustainable strategy for weight loss over time. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. But let's go ahead and jump into it. Okay, so what I really want to do first is just do a quick recap on weight loss and how it works from a scientific perspective. First and foremost, you've heard me say this 1,000 times. I'm sure if you go online, you probably have heard this too. It is truly a balance of calories in versus calories out, right? How much fuel is coming into your body and how much you're burning, and having what we call a negative balance or being in a caloric deficit to help you lose that excess body fat. Now, if you've been on my channel quite a bit, you know that is, of course, it's easier said than done. And just saying it doesn't mean that you can automatically change your behavior right away. And so we got to have some strategies in place to help you take actionable steps and ultimately work towards weight loss that's appropriate for you or for your client. And the first thing, of course, to remember is that rule of calories in, calories out, while we have to talk about the behavioral side, that is the rule, right? Outside of some very, very rare examples where it is more difficult for your metabolism, you cannot kind of bypass that rule. So when I have clients tell me they're like, I'm eating 800 calories and I'm not losing weight, first off, there's a 99% chance you are not. And that's not to demean or dismiss, it's just helping educate people and provide a better perspective on what calories are, how you're actually tracking, because you are most likely not eating that few of calories, right? I do this a lot of times with my clients where they tell me they're eating 1,000, 1,200 calories, whatever it is. And when we break it down, it's actually quite a bit more, sometimes twice as much. And what's really interesting, we actually have some cool studies about this. I've actually done a post about this, which I'll kind of link right up here for y'all to see. Basically talking about how people tend to vastly underestimate rather the amount of calories they consume and overestimate their exercise. And so while it's understandable that it can seem frustrating where you think calories don't matter, I'm already eating very little, actually when you break it down and you get your calories adjusted, you are going to lose weight no matter what. So I want to make sure we get that out from the jump so that y'all have that understanding. The other thing to note too is that, of course, exercise is helpful and it is part of the equation, especially in the first couple months of training, but exercise alone is not what's going to help you lose and sustain weight loss long term. We kind of see is that the first couple of months doing exercise, because if you're someone who hasn't been working out for a long time, can produce a lot of calorie burning, which is great, right? We start seeing awesome results like change in mood, maybe start building some muscle mass a couple months in, your sleep is better, everything starts being better, and you're burning more calories, and so the weight starts coming off a lot easier. But the body over a couple of months starts adapting to that, and you get more conservative with your energy expenditure. So kind of the old adage where they say you can't outwork a bad diet is actually kind of true once you get more consistent in the gym. And so exercising is still gonna be an important part, but the diet is gonna be the main thing we focus on for sustainable long-term weight loss. The analogy or kind of the example I use, right, is like you're kind of just eating all that you want, right? You're eating the jelly donuts, you're eating the Philly cheesesteak, the pizza. And again, if you're very, very active those first couple months, maybe you can get away with it, where you're kind of just eating whatever you want, like this is awesome, I'm losing weight because I'm so active. But then you're gonna realize after a while, you're like, why aren't I losing weight anymore by eating all these high calorie foods? Well, it's because the diet now is kind of the main factor that's taken over. Okay, so now that we have a good understanding of weight loss in general, right, the main rule of those calories in, calories out, and of course, understanding that diet is gonna be our main tool, our main leverage point to help us accomplish that. Now we're gonna go into what I call the 3 R's of weight loss. These are 3 strategies that I use, and again, for coaches or if you're working on your own kind of weight loss journey, these are some great tools that you can implement right now, today, to help you accomplish weight loss and make it sustainable for you long term. Because again, if it's not sustainable, if you start binging and you're like, oh, you know, 1 week I'm eating basically nothing, and then you're starving the next week, not going to be sustainable for you. So I find that anecdotally for my clients and using some research background that this is a really, really great set of skills or tools that you can add to ultimately help you lose weight. So the first R that I use weight loss is kind of a big tool is simple restriction, which is eating less calories in general. This is usually a very simple strategy to implement with people. And really the way that I do it, you have a few methods of how you can accomplish this, but essentially you're just taking in less calories, and I usually do it in the form of carbohydrate or fat. Now, the reason I do carbohydrate or fat is because those two macronutrients are the ones that typically people eat in excess. Protein, very, very rare for a weight loss client where I see they're eating too much protein. If anything, they're not eating enough. And so increasing your protein intake, especially if you're someone who starts resistance training, is going to be very, very helpful. All right, the last thing you want with all the weight loss that you're going to be accomplishing is then to lose what little muscle mass you have on your body. You want to lift some weights, make sure that you're getting stronger, getting more muscle, and then ultimately that protein you're bringing in is going to help support that goal. On top of that, the research is a little conflicting on this, but it does seem that protein in general does have a higher satiety rate, meaning it makes you feel more full. A kind of practical example I give is like, imagine I gave you just a giant bowl of potato chips, right? You could just keep deleting that entire bowl, no problem. And by the time you're finished it, you're like, dude, bring me another, I'm still hungry, right? You can bring out the pizza, you can bring out the donuts. It seems like with foods like that, a lot of high fat, a lot of high carbohydrate, you can just keep downing it. But now flip that around. Imagine I just brought you out plain cooked chicken breast, right? Just baked in the oven, no seasoning. Don't ask why, but no seasoning. And I just put a plate of chicken in front of you. How far do you think you're gonna get through that chicken? You're probably gonna eat maybe a couple bites, maybe 4 to 8 ounces max. And you're like, brother, please give me something else. Give me some hot sauce or something, right? Well, 8 ounces of chicken breast, you're looking at maybe somewhere in like the 250 to 350 calorie range, give or take, depending on the quality of the chicken and what type of chicken you're doing, whether it's thighs or breast. And so it's just very difficult to eat a lot of protein in most circumstances. And so by kind of removing some of your carbohydrate and fat from your diet, which usually is the more processed foods, you'll find that that is a better strategy for overall weight loss over time. And so the ways that you can do that to restrict, one is you can use, of course, a tracking app. What I use a lot with my clients that like to track and like kind of that more strict version, a way that's very metric based, is using an app like MyFitnessPal, where you log your food every day. Usually I'll do like a week recall of their diet to see like, hey, don't change your diet at all. I know coach is gonna be looking at your diet, but seriously, eat exactly how you would normally eat, but track everything. Measuring is ideal, but I understand that that's not realistic for most people. So just do as best you can with tracking. And what I say is, don't be conservative, right? If you're doing your peanut butter, I want you to kind of, estimate it as best you can to where you're like, oh man, I think I did a serving of peanut butter. It's like, no, you probably did. You probably did a little bit more. So making sure you account for that appropriately. And then once you have an idea of what your week looks like, have an idea of what your average day or calorie intake is, and then we can cut it down by about 300 to 500, because that'll help you lose about half a pound to a pound per week. And from there, you just kind of small take out every single meal, and you remove those items, those fats and those carbs, before you know it, the weight starts coming down. Now, if you're like, Coach D, I'm not downloading no app, right? I already have 50 million apps on my phone. This is stupid. You want me to use a barcode scanner? I'm not doing that. That's fine. Another strategy that I found is really helpful with my clients as well is basically just removing half of the carb or half of the fat in your meal day to day. So for example, you're doing your breakfast, right? You got your scrambled eggs, you got your 2 slices of toast, and you have your yogurt and your banana. Well, take out 1 slice of toast of that meal. That's about 100 to 150 calories right there, just removing a portion of the carbohydrate. Then you do your lunchtime and you have your big salad, you're being healthy, right? Getting your good vitamins and minerals, chicken salad with it, and you have this very, very high fat dressing. So you cut the amount of salad dressing you use in half as well. That's just a couple examples of how, okay, I'm not tracking it on an app per se, or I'm not being super strict in that regard, but every meal I have, I'm taking a fat or a carb and I'm slicing it in half. You do that for every main meal throughout the day, you're gonna easily cut out 300 to 500 calories, and you're gonna start seeing the weight go down in the right direction. And another big one, another game changer that I really find with my clients is excessive alcohol and snacks. Again, if you're drinking straight liquor, right, typically the lower calorie, right? So, Coach, he's not saying just have only tequila shots, although tequila shots are great. But what I am saying is a lot of mixed drinks, a lot of high calorie drinks like that, you may not realize it, where you maybe on a Friday night or Saturday night, you're having 4 or 5 mixed drinks. And that could be well over 1,000, maybe pushing the 2,000 calorie mark, right? You drink 4 margaritas, depending on their size, man, that has a crap ton of calories. And again, not bad, but maybe removing a little bit of that, right? Maybe having 1 or 2 margaritas on a weekend versus having 3 to 4, or maybe I do more of a lower calorie kind of alcohol versus just having the higher calorie drinks. That is a restriction or a reduction tool that you can use as well. And of course, snacking too, right? Not saying you have to completely eliminate all the snacks from your diet, but by reducing them a little bit, right? Instead of having your full candy bar, maybe you have half, right? Instead of having the whole pint of ice cream, you do a third or half of that as well. That can be a really, really good tool for helping you lose weight over time. All right, the next one is replacement. So technically all of these are a form of restriction in a sense because you are eating less calories, but the way it looks is a little bit different. So instead of in the first example where I was saying just remove foods entirely, right? You still have the same meals essentially, you're just removing part of it. Replacement is swapping things out for things that are more calorie friendly, things that are lower cal in general. So a couple examples of that could be going from a traditional soda to a diet soda. I know for weight loss clients, a really big one a lot of times is they drink maybe 2 or 3 sodas a day. Depending on the size of soda, that might be 500 plus calories right there. If you switch it to a sugar-free or a diet soda, well, you just removed 500 calories from your day just from making that change. And before all y'all yell at me in the comments here about diet soda and aspartame and oh my God, it's causing cancer. I already did a post about this, which I'm gonna put up right here, going over aspartame, how more or less in relative doses, it's very, very healthy. It's not gonna cause cancer long-term. It's not gonna make, your insulin freak out or whatever, mess with your pancreas. And ultimately, even if it does turn out that aspartame and some of those maybe sugar replacements have issues long-term, you know what has big issues long-term? Obesity, right? So having obesity can be something that does impact those body systems in a great degree. And so if by subbing out those drinks makes it easier for you to lose weight and get healthier, I'm gonna take those potential side effects over the known side effects of having obesity long-term. Some other really good ones that I use with my clients all the time for suggestions on things that you can replace meals with, of course, making sure that they're cleared medically and they're talking with their registered dietitian, all that good jazz, are things like yogurt substitutes, right? So maybe people are doing, whole milk yogurt or a higher calorie yogurt by adding extra additives to it. Going to maybe a sugar-free yogurt like an Oikos or a Chobani can maybe cut it down by another 100 or so. And that can be a really good strategy for breakfast or for a snack if you have kind of that sweet tooth craving at night. Protein is another one. This is where kind of you can get a sneaky high amount of calories if you're not paying attention, right? You're like, well, Coach D said get that protein in, so I'm doing B-dubs every other weekend. I got my, high fat kind of ground beef where maybe it's very fatty and that has a lot of excess calories. And for a taco night, I can delete 6 or 7 tacos from Taco Bell. I have no problem with that. So how do I maybe adjust my meat consumption to help with that? Well, of course, the leaner meats are going to be ultimately better, right? So if you're having a taco night and you're having maybe the higher calorie, higher fat content ground beef, maybe it's like an 80-20 split, maybe go to a leaner ground beef where it's 93 to 7. If you season it properly and you make sure you cook it properly, you don't burn the shit out of it, I guarantee you it's going to taste just as good. And ultimately you might cut out again, maybe a couple hundred calories in the long term. Fish is another good one, right? Maybe if you're doing a lot of fried fish, maybe a lot of high calorie fish, maybe you substitute for leaner fish like a tilapia or a cod or a mahi, right? You can buy them at the frozen section at Walmart. Relatively affordable too, versus constantly having the fried fish. Salmon, although very, very healthy, and especially if you have every now and again, but salmon also tends to be a fattier fish. And so maybe you swap it every now and again for a low cal option. So you're still getting your protein in, but your fat content is going down quite a bit by making that substitute. And again, you can just overall replace your diet with higher protein. A safe rule of thumb, especially if you're someone who starts resistance training while trying to lose weight, you're like, how much protein do I eat? A good idea is take your goal body weight and try and get 1 gram per pound of body weight there. So if you're someone who's around the 300 pound mark and you're like, Coach, yeah, I know I need to get down to about the 200 mark by doing some body comp analysis, by speaking with my doctor, by my coach mapping out, and maybe recent history, I was at 200 pounds and I felt good there. You're not gonna try and get 300 grams of protein. That is insane. But pushing for like the 180 to 200 grams of protein, still gonna be challenging, but a lot more understandable. And I guarantee you, in a lot of cases, you may not even be eating close to that anyway. So by adding more protein to your diet, more lean meats, more beans, more lentils, things of that nature, you're gonna notice that you feel more full, you're gonna feel better, you're gonna support your muscle growth for your weight training, and then of course, your calories are just naturally gonna come down from doing that replacement. And my third and final R for helping you out with weight loss is reorganizing. This is reorganizing the frequency of your meals and the days in which you eat higher versus low calorie options. So there's kind of two schools of thought. There is the more frequent eating per day and the less frequent eating. I would say probably 80 to 90% of the time, I find the more frequent eating to be actually more beneficial versus less. I'll kind of break down each strategy for y'all here. So a lot of times I see with clients, I see this very similar pattern, right? I ask them when I first meet them, walk me through a day of eating from breakfast, lunch, dinner, and all the snacks in between. Take me through what a typical day looks like for you. A good portion of the time, they're like, well, I skip breakfast. Then lunchtime comes around, I'm having a salad of some kind, or I'm having like a pre-prep meal, or I'm ordering something that's nearby. Then I'll have a snack around 4 o'clock, maybe, and then dinner's like a giant meal, maybe 2 servings of dinner. And so what happens a lot of the time is by thinking like, oh, I'm gonna get less calories by eating or by skipping breakfast, they think that the later meals, they can just kind of gorge themselves more so. And that's exactly what happens, right? By skipping that meal and breakfast, you're more starving throughout the day. Your time frame of when you can eat is shortened, so people are like, well, I'm hungry, so I'm gonna eat as much as I can every single meal. And so what I usually suggest for those clients to try is to try and do more frequent meals, usually adding breakfast and adding a snack somewhere in the day, so don't feel as starving when it comes to dinner time and right before bed. So just doing a small breakfast of maybe, a yogurt, a slice of toast, or some hard-boiled eggs and maybe avocado, right? Adding just a small breakfast can be a really good thing to then go to lunch and not feel as starving. And then you have a small snack between lunch and dinner. Before you know it, dinner is a more healthy, normal portion, and you don't have as big of a craving as night, where normally you would kind of binge eat. Now, there are some circumstances where I actually have found clients have success the other way, where they do more or less a version of fasting where, from 12 p.m. until like 8 p.m. is their window to eat, because for them, they just find if they can eat whenever they want, they'll kind of just gorge themselves whenever they can. And so for those clients that have found success with that, 100%, if you kind of cut down your window and you're able to, get in less calories that way, that can be a good strategy. The only caveat I have with that is, of course, depending on when you work out, you may need to change your eating strategy just a little bit. For example, there's some cool research showing that people who do intermittent fasting, where they usually don't have a breakfast and they usually eat like later in the day for their first meal, they tend to be like more lethargic, not putting as much effort when they do their workout if they do it in the morning time. And anecdotally, we can think about that, right? You're at the gym, right? You got a nice big breakfast in. I'm a big breakfast person, so you're doing, your scrambled eggs, your yogurt. Maybe you got some, protein pancakes that you got. If you got some Kodiak cakes with you, 2 hours later, you are ready to crush it. You're ready to go to war. You feel great. You don't get lightheaded. You don't get that low sugar feeling. And so the workout is good. You have more energy, more intensity, and you just feel better. On the flip side, you skip breakfast, and now you're a little bit more lethargic, right? You don't have as much energy or drive as you normally would because you haven't eaten for maybe 15, 16-ish hours since your last meal. And your body's like, dude, like, I'm gonna work out. Sure, you tell me what to do, but I can't put as much effort as I normally would if you had given me a meal, even a small one, a few hours prior. So that's kind of the only caveat with intensity and the timing of your workout. But I do say in rare circumstances, I have had a couple clients have success with the fasting route, just making sure it's done in a healthy manner. And the last part about reorganizing, kind of the final strategy you can do here, is the days you eat and kind of how you eat. So what I mean by that is days, maybe you find that, weekends are really kind of where you binge eat or have a lot more higher calorie. And so maybe those are the days you have to focus on more where, okay, you know what, I'm gonna eat a little bit more frequently. I'm not gonna starve myself breakfast and lunch and then go out, have a really big meal, and then have snacks and then have drinks on top of it, when you could have just eaten a little bit more sustainable, still enjoy yourself at nighttime if you go out, but you're not kind of piling in as many calories. Another way to think about it too is your workout schedule where, okay, I know I'm working out 3 days a week, and typically I'm hungry on those days, and so I'm making sure that I'm fueling my body on those days appropriately. On the days I'm not working out, maybe I reduce my calories just a little bit more because I want to make sure that I'm not overeating on the days I'm not as active. And so you can kind of stagger your diet on days where you feel more or less hungry. And even though you're gonna have fluctuations, if you average the amount of calories over the week and it still seems like it's going down as a deficit and you see the scale go down, you know you're still moving in the right direction. And that is it, y'all. Hey, I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Let me know if you guys are using any of these 3 R's to kind of help you out with your weight loss journey. Coaches, do you guys have any other strategies that you use that could be helpful for people? Please let me know in the comments down below. But of course, y'all know where to find me on the socials at the_shift_method. Join the newsletter, click the take action button, all the stuff that y'all know to do so you can get in contact with me, Coach D here. And of course, if y'all ever want to come down to beautiful Boca Raton, South Florida, love the opportunity to meet with you, chat about doing some personal training, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the next one. Later.